It's a beautiful day in Philadelphia. For the last 17 years, it should be. It's never rained at this event, and it's not going to rain again today. Hello again, everybody. I'm Phil Liggett, and welcome now to the 18th First Union USPro Cycling Championship. 156 miles, and there could be two winners. The best American takes home the stars and stripes of the national champion. If the winner comes from foreign shores, he'll take home just the winner's check, $40,000. This race will attract 750,000 spectators. So let's get straight to the action. Lovely blue skies as we charge back into Ben Franklin. As the riders now going down the back straight, a lot of Saturn boys. IT Nova, former champion of Australia, is number 3 wheel now. David McKenzie up there too. Hincapie is trying now to move away from the tail of this bunch. He's up there, he's number 21 if you can spot him. But that was a difficult chase for George, and he needs to recover and get to the sharp end of the race so they don't do it to him again. As we come onto the parkway now, we've done 117 miles, so we're only 39 miles from the finish, and that is less than an hour to go.
As you saw, Prime Alliance was driving in the front with Saturn. They also have a rider, Chris Horner, who has a great shot. He had a phenomenal year a couple years ago. He went to race in Europe. He came back. He started this season, and he has been on fire. And of course, what happens? He breaks his foot. But he thinks that it was actually a good break for him, and he really wants to show them here.
I better correct that, Jesse, and I was thinking in kilometers, so it's a bit more than an hour to go yet as they go out onto lap number 9 when they come up the home straight. This is the vital corner on the very last turn of the race, but it's a little while away yet, and US Postal now are beginning to get a little bit of control here. Christian van der Velde, whose father is also deeply involved in cycling, was a great cyclist himself, and is watching on the sidewalk. He's in second place there, but US Postal seem to be repairing the damage. That has harmed the field. There's the other half of the field, and it's my bet George made a good decision with Henk Vogels to leave that chase group, because I don't think they'll get across now. Not now. US Postal have put all of the men on the front. Now Hincapie must have recovered from that chase and has told the team to get back on the front and lift the speed.
I'm curious to know where Fred Rodriguez is at this point, because if Fred is in the second group, you could be sure that that's why U.S. Postal Service is at the front driving this first group.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for Fred as he comes through. He wears number 1, pretty easy to spot because he's the defending champion, and he's won it 2 times, a back-to-back. But they are now driving on here. 4.5 hours they've been going. The U.S. Postal team here being driven on flat out by Zabriskie is absolutely flying right now as they filter by.
There is definitely a reason why U.S. Postal Service is driving this group. I'm not quite sure why.
I don't think that Rodriguez is in there. I think he's missed out on the split, and the gap has opened enormously by this turn here from U.S. Postal. I think they must have checked in, because George coming from the back would know that Rodriguez was not in this group. We're still looking for him. I didn't see him. Champ McRae is driving at the front now. We think he's in the second group, which is passing through the finishing line. And that is curtains, I fear, because the Domo boys are trying to do something about it back in the group. But I think it's all been... Rodriguez is confirmed. I can see him. He has missed the split, and I don't think they'll get back. This is how it went. Jess, lap number 8, that group of 40 in the lead had just a 45-second gap, and Saturn was the team that started to drive at the front. They'd realized that not just Rodriguez, but of course Hincapie was behind. But Hincapie, well, he saw the problem. He crossed the gap and then put his team on the front, and I think they've ridden Rodriguez out of this race.
Wow. Last year, Fred Rodriguez completely outsmarted George Hincapie in the last few miles of this race, and this might be George getting his revenge.
Well, if things go in circles, especially in bicycle races, don't they?
Literally. But a major blunder, not being able to stay within the first group, because for now, as you mentioned, to get back is almost impossible.
I think the bronchitis has affected Fred more than we realized here. He's missed the split. It's now becoming a more personalized battle between the top 3 American teams, which will be Saturn, Navigators, and of course US Postal. There's going to be a big explosion on the Manuyunk when we go up it for the 9th time. Well, we'll take a break now, and we'll be right back with more action from the First Union USPro title race here in Philadelphia.
Texas dealer.
And welcome back. We're with the First Union USPro Championships here in Philadelphia. Yes, it suddenly opened up. He got back to it in 35 seconds, the bunch containing Fred Rodriguez, but the elastic just stretched and snapped. The last check is now 1 minute and 50, so the defending champion has been caught in the wrong group, and I think there's no firepower back there now because this bunch is far, far too big. And the fact that he's been left behind by so many riders does indicate to me he is not feeling at all well, because we did know he was suffering from bronchitis.
Now is Fred dead? Is that it? Fred's over?
I hate to say it's over, you know, before it's really over, but it's just going to be virtually impossible for Fred to catch back up and be competitive if this, you know, race starts to really break up.
This is the back end of the pack on the wall here as the riders now start to be dropped by the pressure being applied at the front. And this is the difficult part of the day now. Greg Henderson, who I think is a New Zealand rider on the 7-up team there, dropping back. And this gives you some idea of how hard this 17% gradient is. The front runners tend to make it look quite easy, but the back end of the race, it is very, very difficult. These are the riders from, in fact, Fred's team here, and we're looking at the back of Max van Heeswijk, a stage winner in the Tour of Spain a couple of years ago. And this is Fred Rodriguez now. No effort there. Fred is not riding like he should. Max coming up alongside him here, and he's probably going to ask questions as whether Fred, in fact, is going to finish this race right now, because there's no effort from Fred to hold the group, which is now riding almost 2 minutes behind the leaders on the road. Max taking a good look at Fred there and just saying, come on, Fred, just lift it just a little bit. Seems to have got some sort of response. This is the man, the only man, who has won the US Pro title back-to-back. But tomorrow, I'm afraid, his next bike race, he'll not be wearing the stars and stripes.
This is definitely not the real Fred, the Fred we've seen the last 2 years. You can definitely see that he had a great early season, so it must be the sickness that's really holding him back at this point.
Well, Max is trying to drag him over the top of the wall here and just put him back in the race, but look at the ground. The Fred has lost on the climb, which is normally his strong point. Other riders falling back here. That's a Lotte rider who's just come on the other side. And that group has sped off into the distance. Well, back up to the leaders. That's way back now, over 2 minutes behind this rider, George Hincapie. He read the move well, he crossed the gap, and he did it in good company along with Henk Vogels. Always a Mercury rider, never far away. There is Henk Vogels alongside him, number 15. He came across with him, and Vogels won this race when Fred Rodriguez was given the title 2 years ago, and that remains the fastest race, by the way. That was a 5-hour 52-minute ride. For a while today we were going to go inside 5 hours 50, but that's not to be now, I don't think. George talking to a teammate there who slipped through on the inside. He won't want his team to overwork now because they've got rid of one of the likely winners, but there are still plenty more in this group, including Trent Klausner, who is a real possibility here, and Trent may have chosen today to refine the magical form which he had last year.
That's it. I had spoken with Tom Schuler, the director of Saturn, and I asked him how Trent was doing. He said, well, he hasn't been as on as he was last year, but you know what? He knows how to come up during big races.
You see, Trent was the big winner last year, nearly double the points of George Hincapie, Julian Dean, and this was a tremendous season for him. Dean is sadly out with injury right now. Hincapie isn't very much in there. Van Bon no longer with Mercury. Baden Cook, an Australian, making his way now with a French team. Very successful. Will get his first ride in the Tour de France this year.
I have to tell you, I grew up with George Hincapie, and he seems kind of reserved emotionally when he talks about this race, but this race means so much to him. He grew up on the East Coast, racing since he's been 11 years old. He's in Europe all year. He gets to come home this one time and race in front of basically a home crowd, his friends and his family.
Well, it's a good time now to take a break from the First Union USPro Championship. We'll be back in a moment.
This is Fred Rodriguez talking to his team manager. I just can't imagine what he's saying. You know, does he keep going on? It's just been a really tough day for Fred.
He had the mild case of bronchitis. He missed the I think around the 7th or 8th lap, and at that point we thought he was coming back. He did make a move, but then the big lead pack went to over 2 minutes, and at that time Fred was done, and now he's just talking to his people whether he should finish or not, or what should happen with Fred Rodriguez there.
I think he'll ride on because he's come up to that rear of that group. He's got back into the group. He's done well to do that, but this group enacting the drama is a couple of minutes ahead on the road here. And you see, we've now got the riders from the Polish Moroz team. Remember, the man to attack early on was Wacker.
Yep.
And now they've got some really big men. That was Paul Niedowicki, who is a very, very good winning bike rider, and he is now in this league group. Meanwhile, this is Fred Rodriguez talking with the team and deciding whether he should press on or not. That's Henrik Redant, who once won the Paris Tours race in world record time, sitting in the driving seat. It's since been surpassed by Andre Schmil, who, funny enough, announced his retirement only last week. But we're looking now. I think, you know, I think he said, Fred, forget it. I think we're going to see Fred climb off here. He's left him now and carried on back to the race. So the defending champion and the champion for the last 2 years is going to abandon. That's my feeling.
I think I agree with you, Phil. It's just not worth it now at this point. He's really out of the race to get a top place, and he has more racing to do. The best thing now is just to get healthy.
Well, he's got the Tour de France as well, and they must pull him round for the Tour. It's only 3 weeks away, and that is very, very important to the Belgian team. So, and it's very important to Fred too, and I would be one of the nicest things in the world if we could call him as a stage winner in the Tour de France in a couple of weeks' time. And that's all possible. Back with the leaders now. This is a very big field for this stage of the First Union USPro Championship. And remember, this is the 18th. Now, I think we've got online Frankie Andreu. Frankie, Phil Liggett. Things going according to plan?
Hello?
Are things going according to plan, Frankie? I see George Hincapie has got back up to the leaders.
Yeah, he's in the first. Yeah, he's in the first group, so it's good. I mean, for a while there was 50 guys up the road, which wasn't good, but we got like 3 guys in here. So I mean, we got one more time with the big wall, and that's going to be the deciding factor, I think. So hopefully it'll split up into like a smaller group of 5 or 6.
Well, while you've got this big group, and I can hear all those spectators outside your car there, Frankie, while you've got this big group, it really is just about anybody's race. It's the tactics will be very confusing at this point.
Yeah, it's been real confusing. There's like 3 groups, and the cars have been so far behind, I've had no idea what's been going on in the front group. But, you know, luckily with a little bit of a radio communication, we'd be able to kind of figure things out. But it hasn't been an easy race in figuring out tactically at all.
So so go on, Jesse.
I'm sorry, Frankie, now that Fred Rodriguez is really not in contention, we all know he would have been George's biggest competitor. Who is really George have to watch now?
You know, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure who is in this first group. And so, you know, if I knew some better names, I could tell you. But like I said, it's been confusing. All I know is I got my guys in there, and they just have to respond to the attack. As for specifics, I couldn't tell you because there's so many guys up here, and the race radio has been horrible. They haven't given us any numbers barely at all.
Well, feeling your way around, just like the good old bike races, Frankie, when you couldn't speak to the riders. I love those sort of races.
Yeah, you like the old days, don't you? All right, best of luck. See you guys.
Thanks, Frankie. And yes, I've always objected to managers being able to speak to riders in the bunch. Why can't they think for themselves? Because they make more mistakes that way.
Exactly.
It's a big group, though, Jesse. A much bigger than normal group here as we go back further down the course to Lemon Hill. And that's Fred Rodriguez. Remember, the defending champion. I believe he's now been told to ride the lap out and pull off into the pits and call it a day. There seems to be no point in sending him around now. Look at the winners here from the years gone by. Fred winning in 2001. Henk Vogel's the Australian in 2000. Fred was second, and because he was the American, he won the title, of course. Jakob Pihl of Denmark winning in 99. George the champion and the outright winner of the race in 98. He was disqualified, in fact, in 97 as well. And this, to me, a little round of applause from the crowd on Lemon Hill, recognizing Fred Rodriguez. But this is a swan song from the champion today. He'll descend down into the pits and he'll abandon.
Heading towards the Ben Franklin Parkway, you see the lap time.
Good time too, inside 32 minutes for the lap. This has been a very quick lap, and it's seen the end of Fred Rodriguez as a group tries to get away here. just a couple of lengths ahead, but they're going out on the last big circuit. Remember, this is lap number 10, and with Mark McCormack on the front, Hincapie, to me, does not look as sharp as I would like to see, because he's trying to get across to that gap. He's the big guy, about 7 men down this line, working out of the saddle, but he didn't look terribly good. And there is confirmation. Rodriguez pulls into the pits and abandons the championship. Two-time winner is out.
This is an extremely big disappointment for Fred, but he's won it twice. He'll be back next year, no doubt, and he'll be looking to gain it back again.
Well, there's always another day, and he has had two US titles, rather, which is something most riders would never get to see. So I'm sure he'll regain his form. It's so ironic because he was having his finest season. He had some terrific results from March right through, but he's caught the old chest problem that so many cyclists do, because they race in good weather, they race in bad weather, and bronchitis is a nightmare. And because of all the drug problems within the sport, or the drug control, perhaps I should say, they cannot take the cures for bronchitis that you or I could take, because then they'd be banned from the sport. And so that sometimes is quite an irony. Well, we'll take a break now, and we'll be right back with more action from the First Union USPro title race here in Philadelphia. Welcome back to Philadelphia. All action on the First Union USPro Championship. Well, we're looking at tremendous pressure now being put on here by US Postal on the last climb of the wall. They're trying to be controlled, but it's going to be very, very difficult now. And that one rider we haven't been talking about, Chan McRae, he might be the secret weapon today of US Postal, because he is riding extremely strongly now, and they've got a split in the field over the top of the Manuyunk wall. These are the riders down the bottom end now. These are the other riders in the chase group, but there's a lot of damage being done now over the top by the leading group. So the last time, the 10th time, we're back with the leaders now over the top of the climb, and one or two riders trying to get back on terms there, because for Saturn team, that was Chris Fisher's just scraped across onto the tail. Very, very good effort by US Postal. I'm not sure it's worked out entirely as they expected. They launched all of their men at the bottom of the climb, and I'm not sure it's worked out quite as they wanted to do. This is the remnants now of the big pack, much further down the climb. And some good names here now are dragging their heels. Frank McCormack from Saturn centre the back, looking to be in more than a little bit of trouble now. And also one of the I-Team.Nova riders, who's one of the good riders, Scott Guyton, the New Zealand rider here, right in the centre of our picture. He's gone off the back. John Leeswin on the left of our picture. He would have been in with a chance. Now as we rejoin the leaders up at the front. And this is still the back of the field here. Well, they are out of it right now. Well, it looks as though we've got a nice compact little group getting themselves together. It's far from decided here. We're going to get out on the main field and see when we get onto those 3 small laps just what is going to happen. These are 2 riders coming from the back trying to get on. I can see one of the riders there from the Mapei team. It looks to me like Alan Davis as is the little man coming through. And I'm just trying to see who that other rider is with him from the I-Team.Nova. It's Scott Guyton as well. So we've got 2 riders up there, Alan Davis, Mapei, and Scott Guyton trying to contact the leaders.
We have one of the managers, I believe, is John Wharton on the phone. Is that what you're telling me, John?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? How's the race breaking down right now, John?
Right now it's breaking down pretty much as was expected. The only difference, obviously, that Fred is out, but also we thought would have more than one guy, and we thought the group would be bigger than it has been in the last couple years.
I see you've got Henk Vogels in that lead group, John. Is he your man today?
I think Chris Winner is our man today because he's an American and he can take the win and the jersey. He's been going very well. He was second in Lancaster. He's had a really good run here the last 4 weeks.
And what's his sprint like, John?
He's a pretty good road sprinter. After 156 miles, everybody's tired and makes it a little bit even.
Now, if Chris isn't there, where's all the challenge coming from in this league group? Do you know the composition of it?
Well, the composition, as far as we know, is John Leeswin, Mark, there's a Navigators, I'm not sure who, there's 2 Postal, obviously George is a favorite right now.
Okay, thanks, John, very much. Well, we've just seen an attack off the front there by Thomas Gronovitz. He's a member of the Amore Vita team. And he's a rider who won't be marked too heavily by the big names right now. And these are the dangerous riders. When they start attacking like this one at a time, they can't mark every one of them here. And as you see, the big teams are looking for an action. Mark McCormack in this front group as well for Saturn.
John Warden talked about Chris Weary, one of their main riders. Chris Weary has been riding very well, but Chris Weary cannot match George Hincapie's sprint. So they must have something up their sleeve. They're going to have to get away from George if they want to beat him.
That's a good point, that as we look here at the group now, beginning to try and work out just how they're going to handle the attack that has just gone off the front.
The attacks are just coming right and left right now. This is the race. They're trying to form a smaller breakaway. George would be content to be sprinting in a group because he's a great field sprinter, but there's a little bit more security if he's just with 3 riders.
Things beginning to hot up in the First Union USPro Championship. We'll be back very shortly. We see in the Giro d'Italia, the Tour de France is coming soon, but don't forget also here on OLN, it's the Vuelta España, the Tour of Spain. That will come to you from Saturday, September the 7th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Live daily coverage from then on. Stay with us here on OLN for all of the cycling action. This is becoming a very tactical race because a lot of these riders really believe now they can take this championship.
Watch George. George coming around. It looks like George might be making an attack around the outside. We just lost sight of him at the front of the screen.
Well, sitting right on the back of the wheel here is Mark McCormack, another man for Saturn. We move our way round to Lemon Hill. And it looks as though now we've got Hincapie on the front trying to drive this race along. He wants some action. He's calling for riders to come by on him. They don't look too willing to do anything because he puts the pressure on. He won't make all of the pressure. And of course now they've seen Hincapie do a hard turn. They've attacked him. 2 riders trying to go clear. Wow. For the moment at least they will have a gap. But Hincapie somewhere there has found the legs to come back into it.
Hincapie is so fit right now. He knew he was going to be counterattacked. He was ready for it. He got right on their wheels, and that's the way you have to do it. If you let any gap develop, then you are cooked.
The game of chess. Move, 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 move. And George is setting himself up, and he's got a lot of help up there with his U.S. Postal teammates, doesn't he?
He has, but George is responding so fast to these attacks, and that is key. Like I said earlier, if he hesitates, it gives them a chance to get a little bit of a gap. But as soon as he sees the attack on the move, he gets right on immediately.
Well, this little group trying to get away. Hincapie has got himself a little bit of help with Cham McRae, the 2 top boys here. And just a 4th rider trying to get across. 162 just getting on is Mariano Friedrich, a full international, and I think a young Olympian as well, Friedrich in the pursuit class. And this again, they're coming back together, you see. And we've still got some good riders here. They're not allowing one move to succeed. Michael Barry is still in here too for US Postal. Just caught a sight of him. Now George has slipped back to the back of the field to check out just what is going on here at the back as the riders are bridging the gaps. There's nobody showing us yet they've got the strength because Zbigniew Piatek just caught him off to the right in a blue colored jersey. He is the rider from Moroz. Back up to the leaders. So it is the start go. Well, we've got Frankie Andreo, the manager here today of the US Postal team. Frankie, there looks to be a lot of tactics there. This race isn't going the way a lot of teams would want right now.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was just saying, Frankie, a lot of team tactics, and it's a stop-go in this breakaway with these riders at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's 10 guys here. There's some good guys, Weary and Vogels and Pate, and there's going to be a lot of tactics going on now. So it's going to be a lot of attacking while each rider tries to figure out which group to go with. I mean, after 250 kilometers, you only have so many efforts in your legs. You can't go after everything.
That's
and Frankie,
right.
If this comes down to a sprint between these riders in the group right now, who do you think is George's competition, biggest competition?
Coco B is very fast. Hank Vogels is very fast. Yeah, but I mean, I mean, George is fast too, but I don't think it's going to come down to a sprint. These guys are going to attack the heck out of each other for 3 laps around Lemon Hill, and it's going to split up into a group of 2s or 3s or something like that. I'll be very surprised if these 12 guys stay together.
Now, what about team tactics here? It looks to be coming an in-fight with the Mercury, Saturn and yourselves at the moment. Now, the big danger is one of the other riders will get away and win the day.
Yeah, that is a danger. You're right. And when the big guns look at each other, some of the smaller guys can take advantage of that and sneak away. And so that's something that they have to be aware of. And, you know, at the same time, you could be an advantage for one of us. You know, I mean, granted, we're Postal Service, but maybe if one of our, maybe not a George Hincap, he has a chance to get away. Maybe the other guys will all just be sitting around looking at George. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways this can go, and hopefully it'll just follow into our path, and we'll be able to cross that line first.
Well, thanks, Frank. As you might gather, the police escorts are in town as the riders come away from Lemon Hill, and they're heading down to what will now be the start of 3 3-mile laps. We're looking here at Michael Barry of US Postal. We've got 15 riders in this leading group, and a lot of the big teams have put the men in the group, which is what they were trying to do. Chris Werry, the big danger just now, he's the rider on the Mercury cycling team. He's just off our picture to the left here. You can see his wheel peeping into the shot. There he is, and Werry having tremendous form. He's got some great help here in the sprinter of the team too, Henk Vogels. There's the details of Michael Barry setting the pace. He's a Canadian, but he's had a very, very good couple of seasons now as a pro on the US Pro Cycling team.
And you might recognize that name because his wife, Dee Demet Barry, who we talked about in the women's race.
And she finished in 3rd place today in the women's race, so she had a great ride too. So over the top of Lemon Hill, we're going to climb this little climb now, which is going to become the critical jumping off point for the man who might win this title, because we've got 3 more times over it. Behind them now is the Manuyunk wall, but there's no liaison or cohesion in this leading group at all. They are just attacking. If the attack is countered, they just don't work. It is a most difficult race to work out as we swoop away back onto the parkway. There you can see, and I think it's safe to say that the winner will come now from this group of riders, but it's anybody's guess who it will be. Well, it's all action here now at the First Union USPro Championship, but we'll take just a quick break. And welcome back as we course round the streets of Philadelphia in the First Union USPro Championship. Well, we'll just give you the names of the 13 riders who have made the split. Henk Vogels and Chris Werry, Thomas Gronkowitz, Mark McCormack, Saturn, the Polish riders, Zbigniew Piatek, George Hincap, US Postal, Mark Walters from the Navigators, Michael Barry, US Postal, Cham McRae, US Postal, Kirk O'Bee, who's having a great season, Ciro Campangara, Darian Kluk, and Mariano Friedrich. Just a couple of names there we wouldn't expect to see, but we might get a surprise champion, you know.
Mike, are you still with us, Michael?
I'm still here, and I got to tell you that there are a couple surprises up here. Mark McCormack from the Saturn team looks absolutely wonderful. He's relaxed. He's following moves with ease. Mariano Friedrich, too. Mariano was one of my Olympic teammates in 1996. You don't make Olympic teams unless you're a good bike rider. This guy is fantastic. He's up here. He looks like he's just riding the first 20 miles of the race. So we may get a surprise here. George is riding well, but he does look a little bit labored. I have to believe, agree with Phil in his earlier comments saying that George doesn't look as sharp as he typically does.
Well, there's an attack on the left side of the road there. It looks like, again, the Mercury boys are launching, and that looks like the style of Henk Vogels, who's gone. And there's a quick reaction from the field now. This is that was Henk.
Here they come again.
The champion of Canada in the middle as well. This is a serious move down the back straight.
2 Mercury riders and George Hincapie. I believe it's George Hincapie at the front. Saturn right behind, chasing these 2 riders down. And Mike McCarthy made a really good point about Mariano Friedrich, Olympic team member on the track. And that means if you're a track rider, you usually have fast legs. So we might want to watch out for him in the sprint.
Well, we're looking here now as they come round to what is the last 7 miles of the race. Henk Vogel's just shaking his head there as an attack goes again, and this time it's Saturn going to try luck. Mark McCormack, we heard what Frank said, Mike McCarthy said earlier. This looks to me as though Saturn have ridden a great race so far, and they might finish it off today.
This would be a dream come true for Mark McCormick. This would be the best result ever for him. He could probably taste this. He would love to bring a win to Saturn.
No, they've got him marshaled on the inside as they bring him back under control, but they're constantly splitting. They are so afraid of each other. There's no group working together anymore. They are individuals now. And numerically, I suppose US Postal have got the men to play the cards. They're going to have to start sending them down the road one at a time in the hope that one doesn't get caught.
This is when the cat and mouse game begins, and that means that the riders know that the finish is coming up. None of them want to lead it out. None want to be in front blocking the win, so you become this cat and mouse. Who's going to make the first move?
Now, this rider in the front here, I think, is a lapped rider. Does not. There's the leaders of the race now as they come through. This time they'll come through on to go out on the second of three 3-mile circuits. Just 6 miles to go. You can see the size of the crowds here now in the Ben Franklin Parkway. And this is Michael Barry on the front just now. And everybody looking at each other. This is an amazing race now. They all know what's at stake, and it's a little matter of $40,000 as they look to see which one might take this, because everybody's eligible for the prize. Only the American is eligible for the Stars and Stripes of the national champion, and that's what the Americans want, to ride him for the next 12 months of the year.
I think it was Frankie said it's not going to come down to a sprint, but I think it's going to come down to a sprint, and I think they got enough. There's excellent sprinters out there. This is going to be a tough one to call.
I think you're absolutely right.
And Michael Barry is just doing such a phenomenal job of keeping this together. I mean, he is on every single attack. He's the first U.S. Postal Service man to chase it down.
Well, we'll take a break now, and we'll be right back with more action from the First Union USPro title race here in Philadelphia. Here's a special for you, Le Tour Encore, beginning July the 3rd at 7 p.m. and running right through till July the 4th at 8 p.m. And that's a look back at last year's tour from the start in Dunkirk to the finish in Paris. The quest for Lance Armstrong to get a 3rd title. And after that, at 8 o'clock on July the 4th, we will do the road to the Tour. And that's an in-depth look at Lance Armstrong as he tries now for his 4th straight win. There's still no way around working this one out on Lemon Hill again. They have not managed. These riders, I feel, are going to go down to the line, and it will be a sprint finish.
You have to look out for the early attacks before the finish. That's how Fred Rodriguez caught George Hincapie last year. He went early. Nobody expected Fred Rodriguez to go early because Fred is such a good sprinter. And that's really what these sprinters have to look out for now, is someone going early.
And watch out for this man flexing his legs at the back, because he is the dangerous rider from the Polish Moroz team, Zbigniew Piatek. Just shaking those muscles and just reminding them that they've not finished their day's duty yet, because they still have 4 miles to go to the finish. One more circuit when we pass downtown. This long line of riders, Piatek not contributing to the race, and he probably will say, why should I? There are so many riders with teammates here. I'm up here by myself. He's going to take advantage of that, I think.
And that's what a lot of the foreigners do. They know the Americans want to win or be the first American over the line, and they capitalize off the Americans watching one another.
Well, we're looking here at some very good American riders as well. US Postal have ridden a good race. They put the men up there. The man they wanted up there was indeed George Hincapie. They've now got him up here. They've also got Cham McRae, so they have a very good second string to the bow as well. Now they've got to try and keep this race together. Michael Barry riding a wonderful race here for US Postal as he keeps the pace high to stop the attacks going as they come back down towards town. But I don't think anybody, because goodness knows what the riders are doing on both sides of the ambulances there, but they've sorted themselves out as they now come down towards the back side of the Ben Franklin Parkway before they turn at the bottom and come up. This is still Michael Barry, and tucked in right behind him, Mariano Friedrich, who could be doing the ride of his life here. There he is, 162, third wheel. Is Big George Hincapie, those big legs just flailing on the pedals. He doesn't look tired anymore as he did a little bit earlier on today.
It's just, I can't say it enough, Michael Barry has been the ultimate domestique, and that means he's the ultimate worker. He's working for George. He is just working his heart out for him.
Well, the champion of Canada is in here as well for the Navigators, and they've got a rider we must not ignore in Kirk O'Bee. Kirk has won 2 huge races in Europe this year, the Grand Prix Pino Cerami and the Grand Prix of Nantes, I think it was. Might have been Angers, but I think it was the Grand Prix of Nantes. And the Grand Prix of Rennes, that's right, I'll get it right one day. And those are 2 big races in Europe. Now to come here, and they really do expect to do well. They'll be very disappointed if they don't get a medal here with one of their riders. And they've got 2 good ones in this breakaway for Navigators.
Hincapie getting pumped for the sprint. It's just amazing how much adrenaline you have these last few miles. You know the sprint's coming up. You know you're a sprinter. The crowds are going crazy. It really can numb a lot of the pain you're feeling.
3 miles to go. We are 10 minutes short of 6 hours today, so it won't be a record, but it'll be close, as they are 3.5 miles from the finishing line. But the cat and mouse will start, I think. The record will pass us by in just a couple of minutes, but we've only ever had 3 of the 18 races thus far inside 6 hours, and I think we're going to do that. Just look at the effort being put on now. US Postal are playing up what I think is their final card here, with Barry doing. He's going to sit there and wait for a move. Now, I think, you know, it might be that Hincapie will launch, or Cham McRae will launch on Lemon Hill.
That's quite possible. I think Hincapie is very confident in his strength. He doesn't have to wait for the sprint.
There he is, George Hincapie. The pressure's on. He's won one and lost one because he was disqualified in the first time he won the title for pacing back behind the motor. After he flattened in the final couple of miles. Next year he came back and it was sweet revenge. He won the title clean and fair. 1 lap to go. 3 miles from the finish of 150. Have the men here, Mercury has the men here, Navigators have the men here, and so do Saturn. And there are 3 riders here with no team support at all. 4, in fact, if we include the Polish rider Zbigniew Piatek. It is going to be a very difficult race for them to work out tactically.
And now Cham McRae working his way up to the front to take over for Barry when Barry just can't go hard any longer.
Things beginning to hot up in the first Union USPro Championship. We'll be back very shortly. And welcome back to Philadelphia. All action on the first Union USPro Championship. We look down from the helicopter that stayed with these riders now for just a few minutes short of 6 hours today. As George Hincapie, his whole body must be tingling here. He's done everything right so far. Now he's got to make sure he gets it right in the sprint and say thanks to the team for the hard work that they've done to put him in this position. Henk Vogels looks to me as though he's seeking the wheel now of George Hincapie. Vogels has won before, and it was then Fred Rodriguez who finished behind him to become the best American. It may be a repeat in as much as it could be Hincapie who's going to finish second. There's Vogel, number 15. Number 112 has sought out Vogels, the sprinter, is Zbigniew Piatek onto Lemon Hill. This is the last possible chance for an attack to stop a sprint. And again, the speed has been lifted to try and stop the attacks, to keep it together so that Hincapie can hold it. But the gaps here have opened at the back now. And I think it's Barry who's gone off the back. His job was done last lap, keeping the race together for George Hincapie. So now he can afford to crack it. Just a little bit.
As Bill said, Barry did his job. He expended himself, keeping this pace high. He's just trash now, but he did his job phenomenally.
He did his job, and he'll finish 13th of the 13 leaders here. And he did his job well because they've stayed together over the top. 1 or 2 slightly be up the front will require a bit of work to chase them down before you take in those deep breaths and start the sprint. That for one rider is worth $40,000, the richest race there is in the United States, and there aren't many I can name, I think, that carries a bigger prize list than $40,000 for the win. But more important than the money to a pro bike rider, if you're American right now, you want that Stars and Stripes jersey to race the rest of the year in around the world. There's an attack on, and look like Danny Pate who went. That's the start of it. Danny Pate, the world time trial champion. If he goes alone, he'll win, because that's his art, is to ride on his own when they don't go up and down with the speed. But I think they've spotted him quickly enough this time.
U.S. Postal Service right on him. They knew the attack was coming. They aren't going to let it slip away from him now.
Has been mastered by one, and it looks like it might be Chan McRae there, who's taken up first place behind him, trying to hang on to him. And it's going again, this man who's under 23 world champion last year. And just look at the power of that man, because he may have pulled them away here. Danny Pate looks over. I don't think there'll be a reaction from US Postal, because they're taking the race away from George Hincapie. And we've got a Mercury rider tagged onto the back, and it's not Hink Vogels this. Now, is it the style of Chris Werry? We'll get in there as that. Chan McRae is certainly the rider, and the rider's number 70, so that'll make it Mark Walters. So we've got the champion of Canada, Chan McRae, and Danny Pate would fight out the American title. Walters, although he's North American, wouldn't qualify. He'd look for the win, and they're going to hold them off as they come down onto the parkway to an enormous cheer. Now, this is the last crucial mile of racing, and we've got 3 riders clear. Mark Walters, the champion of Canada, has tagged on to the back of Chan McRae, who's a teammate of Lance Armstrong and also a Texan, and the other man, Danny Pate.
The question becomes, if they stay away, can Chan McRae beat Danny Pate in a sprint? They're both not sprinters.
Well, I wouldn't go to the betting shop and put a bet on, because I think it would be one of the slowest sprints that we'll see. But one of them's got to win, and one of them's going to take home the title if there is not a reaction. Now, I'm just watching here to see if Chan McRae is helping. In my opinion, he is not. Mark Walters is waiting to make the profit of the 2 Americans and take the $40,000, and they're making Danny Pate lead the race all of the way here. McRae's tactic is simple. If Pate sets the pace, McRae will easily win the title, and for him and US Postal, if they get caught, then the theory is that indeed George Hincapie will win for US Postal. So nobody is going to go over the top and help Danny Pate. He's on a hiding to nothing now, and if he keeps this up, all he can hope for will be 3rd place. That's the experience of the older professional as the race starts behind. Barry will not wait for Walters rather will not wait forever, because he has a real chance here of winning this. He won't wait forever, but he'll wait as long as possible before the race comes to him. He'll keep checking over his shoulder and watch. This has been an incredible piece of bike riding by the under-23 world champion Danny Pate. It's not going to be a winning ride for him, because it can't be. He's had to do too much work, as now the race behind starts to spin, and here comes McRae. So Chan McRae here, as now Pate is going to hang on. He hopes for 3rd, but the man who's waited to the last, it will be McRae for the title, and Barry Walters for the win. Walters gets the win, the champion of Canada, but the champion of the United States will be Chan McRae, and the 3rd place will go to Danny Pate. That is without doubt the finest victory ever for Mark Walters. What a great ride for him and his team. He's absolutely delirious. He cannot believe this. That is a tremendous result for the Navigators. And you know, I called in on them at dinner last night, and they said, we're hoping for a result tomorrow. Well, they got it.
And once again, Mark Walters was able to capitalize off of the 2 Americans who were watching one another. But US Postal Service, they still received the USPro Championship, with Chan McRae being the first American over the line.
Well, that is a fabulous result for US Postal. It wasn't quite the way they had it planned, but that tremendous attack by Danny Pate, what a star of the future. This massive man who is the under-23 world champion had nowhere else to finish but 3rd, because the other 2 wily old professionals nailed him to the cross when he went out and made all of the pace. Barry wanted the win for the Navigators. Walters rather wanted the win for the Navigators, while McRae wanted the win as champion of the USA.
I was talking to the race race director, Ed Beeben, he said, you know, we're always the dark horse. Well, he nailed it. They were the dark horse, but watch out for him now.
A tremendous race in the end, and what a hard race to find the winner from, because the tactics were such that they were marking each other so tight. You just look at this man, he cannot believe he has won this. It's only the 16th win of his professional cycling career. He turned pro back in 1998. There's the official result. Pate hanging on by the skin of his pants, I would say, to beat off Henk Vogels, who won the sprint from the rest. Now you see, had they stayed together, Vogels would have taken the race. And it didn't rain again. What a magnificent race it was. So tactical towards the end. A champion of Canada getting the greatest win of his career. But because he wasn't an American, he just gets the check for $40,000. The champion of the USA is Chan McRae. And next thing for him could well be the Tour de France when he'll ride alongside his mate Lance Armstrong. Well, remember this summer, the world's most prestigious cycling race returns to OLN, and catch the 2002 Tour de France preview show on Friday, July the 5th. That's 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. And then from July the 6th, the live coverage begins from Luxembourg at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Don't forget, all information on OLN and its coverage of world-class cycling can be found on our website, www.olntv.com. Hope you've enjoyed this one. And for the time being, from Philadelphia, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.